They say flying is the safest form of travel. But what if the real danger isn't mechanical failure or turbulence? What if the true horror begins after the wheels leave the ground? This is the story of the flight that never should have happened, and how I ended up boarding a plane that no longer existed. It was supposed to be just another red-eye flight. Flight 237 from Denver to Anchorage, a Boeing 737, mid-capacity, mostly seasoned travelers heading out for business or family visits. I was among them. Michael Harris, 39, software consultant, not new to travel, and definitely not one to scare easy. The plane boarded at 10:18 p.m. Rain lashed the windows of Denver International as the final passengers took their seats. The air in the cabin was unusually cold, and not in the usual air-conditioned sense. It was biting, chilling, like stepping into a freezer. I settled into seat 14A, aisle seat, a personal preference, and immediately noticed that the man next to me in 14B wasn't quite right. Tall, gaunt, dressed in what looked like a faded pilot uniform from decades past. His eyes were pale gray, almost clouded. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared straight ahead. I chalked it up to nerves or fatigue. Maybe he was military or ex-airline staff. I plugged in my headphones and tried to ignore the discomfort growing in my gut. The plane took off smoothly, climbing into the night sky. Somewhere over Montana, at cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign pinged off. Most people dozed off or flipped through magazines. The cabin lights dimmed. I leaned back and closed my eyes. And that's when it began. At first, it was subtle. A soft, static buzz over the intercom, then whispers, not words, just tones, muted conversations. I took off my headphones. Maybe the system was picking up interference. The whispers grew louder. It wasn't in my head. Others heard it too. A woman 3 rows up looked around, confused. A businessman across the aisle sat upright. Then the lights flickered. Suddenly, darkness. Pitch black, save for the red emergency aisle lights. People murmured, some called for the flight attendants, but no one came. That's when I looked to my left. The man in 14B was gone. His seatbelt still fastened. A low thump came from the overhead bin above our row. Then another, and another. Like something, or someone, was crawling across the top of the cabin. A blood-curdling scream erupted from the back. Passengers stood up, trying to look, trying to run. But the cabin was shifting, warping. The aisles seemed longer. The lights, when they blinked back on for a second, showed a different interior. Older, 1960s style seating, ashtrays and armrests, faded wallpaper, and everyone was different. Gone were the passengers I boarded with. In their place, ghostly figures dressed in mid-century clothing, a woman with a blood-soaked scarf, a child with hollow eyes, an elderly man reading a newspaper dated July 8, 1973. The flight number had changed too. On the overhead display, Flight 237, final descent, but we weren't descending. The plane shook violently, yet there was no turbulence on the radar. I tried standing up, moving toward the cockpit. But the moment I stepped into the aisle, the scene around me shifted again. I wasn't in the cabin anymore. I was standing in a hallway, long, metallic, lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. The hum of engines still buzzed around me, but distant, echoed. Doors lined the hallway, all shut. Except one slightly ajar, drawn by instinct or something else. I pushed it open. Inside was the cockpit, but the pilots were wrong. Their backs were to me. Their heads twitched unnaturally like marionettes, and then they turned. No eyes, just black voids. Their mouths opened, and from them came that same static-laced whispering. "You should not be here." The door slammed shut behind me. The cockpit glass windshield cracked. Outside, it wasn't the sky anymore. It was darkness. Pure black, as if the plane was flying through space. No stars, no moon, just a vast, endless nothing. I stumbled backward, grabbing for the emergency latch. I fell through it and landed in my seat. Just like that. Everyone around me was normal again. The modern cabin was back. Passengers asleep. Cabin lights normal, but my watch showed 3:07 a.m. The time between takeoff and now, completely gone. Over 3 hours unaccounted for. The plane landed in Anchorage without further incident, but something was off. When I stepped off, I asked a flight attendant, "Hey, what happened to the turbulence and the power cut?" She blinked, confused. "Sir, the flight was smooth. No power issues. Are you feeling okay?" I nodded, pretending I was fine. But inside, I knew something had happened. Back in my hotel, I turned on the news. A segment caught my eye, a commemoration for the 50th anniversary of a plane crash. Flight 237, July 8, 1973, Boeing 737, Denver to Anchorage. Everyone on board died, and they never found the wreckage. That flight number was retired. Until last night, I checked my boarding pass. It clearly read Flight 237. I called the airline. They insisted the flight number was 487. No 237 existed, but I still have the boarding pass. I kept it because I need to remember. Sometimes the skies don't just carry storms, they carry souls. And sometimes they come back looking for someone to stay behind.